Rachel awoke with a start to the sound of her alarm. She'd been deep asleep and dreaming about a massive thunderstorm. The clouds were moving so fast across the sky in her dream, it almost gave the appearance of the heavens being torn open. She had stood, somehow staying upright against the force of the wind, upon a mountaintop, gazing upwards. Suddenly the clouds disappeared and she could see right through a tear in the sky and observe the stars above. There were comets and shooting stars crisscrossing the sky. Then the stars too were torn away. All she could see above were bright flashing colours that spiralled upwards and finally disappeared into a huge circle of light. The dream didn't really concern her, it more intrigued her. At least no one had died. She arose from her bed and dressed quickly. She had to help her mother today as they were expecting visitors for the weekend. Her auntie and 2 cousins had travelled interstate for a basketball coaching clinic. They were planning on breaking up their return trip by stopping over with them. Later on that morning, her aunt's station wagon pulled into the driveway and she followed her mother out to greet them. Her cousin Stephen, whom she hadn't seen for ages, unfolded himself out from the back seat and stood up out of the car to stretch. He must have been just over 6 foot tall. A far cry from the stocky 5-foot youth she'd last seen at a Christmas family reunion. Her other cousin Deborah emerged from the car, somewhat unchanged from how Rachel remembered her. Only her hairstyle had changed from girly pigtails to a now more grown-up, short-cropped style, with elegant blonde streaks. They were both happy to see Rachel and to escape the adults for a while. The aunts only managed quick hugs and kisses from their nieces and nephew before the trio removed themselves to Rachel's room. It wasn't long, though, before her aunt called out to her cousins to come and get their own bags and try to be a little bit more sociable to their aunt. They all emerged from Rachel's room, laughing and stirring each other, teasing about the daggy videos that Rachel's uncle used to make them perform for when they were little. Rachel went down to the station wagon with her cousins to help carry their bags inside. "Here, I'll carry Deb's bag," said Stephen, "if you can carry my sports bag. Her bag's so heavy, I'm sure she'd got a couple of her boyfriends from home stashed away in there." Deborah punched her brother in the arm playfully, and he fell to the ground, groaning and wailing in a fit of mock pain. "Are you all right out there?" called her aunt's voice from inside. "Yeah, Mum," replied Deborah. "I've just saved you and Dad a heap of money. I'm breaking both his arms, so you won't have to cart him around to any more of those expensive basketball camps." Stephen got back up off the ground, and with a suitcase in tow, he waited until Deborah walked past him and messed up her hair. She screamed and ran towards the house, with him chasing her as best he could, while lugging her bag as well. Rachel laughed. Her cousins were both close in age, and she was only a month younger than Stephen was. They'd always been close when they were growing up, as they only lived half an hour's drive away. Then, when her uncle got transferred with his job in the Navy, they'd moved interstate. It was only on occasions like Christmas that they got to catch up. She'd forgotten how much she missed them both. She slung Stephen's sports bag over her shoulder and headed down the driveway after her still squabbling cousins. The night was beginning to fall and the street lights began to activate as the jogger made his way along the well-beaten path near the edge of the road. It was so cold his breath appeared like smoke around his head. The air he sucked into his lungs burnt like hot coals. Thud, thud, thud went the rhythmic plodding of his feet. In the shadows he was almost invisible. Every now and then, though, a passing vehicle would show up the reflective stripes on the back of his sports shoes. He crossed the road and headed on towards the park, the same track he took nearly every day on the return from his run. There was only one bike track through the park and along the creek now between him and his university campus. As he jogged down the bike track on the final leg of his journey, he noticed that up ahead some of the path lighting wasn't working. The darkness didn't faze him, as he'd run this same track almost every day for the past 18 months. He hardly slowed his pace as he entered down the area of the track. Huge, ancient elm trees bordered it, and their canopy blocked any sign of the stars or moon. Suddenly, his foot hooked on something. The momentum of his running pace sent his body spearing headfirst into the dark. His face hit the cold concrete with a sickening whack, only seconds after his elbows had first made contact with the ground. Dazed, he struggled to get up onto his hands and knees. The first indication that he had that someone else was there with him in the darkness was when he felt the crack of something heavy being smashed across the back of his neck. A small torchlight shone in his face. "Check if he's got any cash. A wallet?" "Yeah, it's in his back pocket." "How much?" "Only $20, a freak." "Get the shoes, man." They ripped the $300 pair of trainers off his feet and ran off laughing into the park. The shoes had been a present from his mother and sister. He was left lying unconscious and bleeding, barely alive. The blood flowed out of his nostrils and mouth and made a small puddle on the concrete. "Are you coming today or not?" His laboured breathing eased slightly as the paramedics placed the oxygen mask onto his smashed face. "What are you doing?" As they wheeled him out of the X-ray department and back to the emergency ward, the radiologist dismally surveyed the damage caused to the vertebrae in his neck. He would be lucky if he could ever walk again, let alone finish the university basketball scholarship he'd begun 18 months ago. "Rachel, if you like my sports bag that much, I'll give it to you. But you'd better let me sign it first. That way it'll be worth something to you when I go pro." Stephen grabbed his sports bag from off her shoulder and sauntered away, shaking his head and laughing. "You've always been a bit of a strange one, Rach. Maybe you should try spending more time on planet Earth and less time off with the fairies, or you're going to get a reputation as a really weird chick. Come on, they're waiting for you to have lunch and I'm starving." Rachel finally moved from the spot in the middle of the driveway that she'd been glued to for God knows how long. She didn't know why she was tormented with these visions, or why she'd been lumbered with this so-called gift. Every day, people all around her were checking their astrology reports or consulting clairvoyants, trying to get some insight into their futures. If they only realised just how lucky they were, blissfully unaware of the paths their lives would take. Still shaken from vision, she made her way inside for lunch. The thought, though, that $20 and a pair of running shoes were worth ruining an innocent person's life for, had left her without much of an appetite. She wondered how people could switch off their conscience and treat another person with such disregard. Why couldn't people see that what they were doing was so wrong? When did things change so much that the respect for another person's life could be just thrown away? The world was a disturbing place to be, and it seemed to be that the good things of this world were giving way to the bad, without even putting up any sort of a fight.